Just let me just check back there.
Got it. And I'm not logged in. Do I need to be logged in?
Yeah, I tried, we can share, why don't we share? Here. Post. Post.
There it is. I got it.
Okay,
You got it? I
got it.
Okay,
You're ready to go.
here and Jen, you can.
Just do this. Okay. Okay.
All right,
Showtime.
and sorry. My first time out of the gate. I'm just getting all the bits and bobs together here. Okay,
Okie dokie. All right. Good evening. I call this meeting of the South Burlington School Board to order at 5:07 PM. The board will now entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss a personnel matter, labor negotiations, and legal services to the board as permitted under 1 VSA section 313, because discussion in open session would place the individuals involved at a substantial disadvantage.
I move.
Second.
Laura moves, Dan seconds. It has been moved by Laura and Dan. Any discussion?
No.
No, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Okay, the motion carries. The board will now enter executive session at 5:08. Yeah.
Go.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Lawrence. How are we doing? I'm the newly appointed vice chair of the South Burlington School Board, and I will be serving as the acting chair this evening in Chairman Seamus's absence. I call this regular meeting of the South Burlington School Board to order at 6 PM on Wednesday, October 8th. Prior to this meeting, the board held an executive session to discuss a personnel matter, labor negotiations and legal services to the board as permitted under one VSA section 313. The board entered into executive session at 5:08 PM and returned to open session at 5:45 PM. No action was taken in executive session. The next item is announcements and amendments to the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move to.
Second.
Okay. So it has been moved by Laura and seconded by Austin to approve the agenda. And is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
I.
Those opposed say no. No. Okay, the motion carries. The agenda is approved. Are there any announcements from the public? Oh, no, please, sorry, that's not yet. Are there any announcements? Right, now, we will move to comments from the public. This is an opportunity for community members to address the board on any topic, whether or not it is on tonight's agenda. If you make a comment, please state your name for the record. You will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The board will listen to all comments, but will not respond directly because this meeting has not been warned as a community forum. Are there any comments from the public? Anybody online?
No one online.
Ready? Moving forward, making good time. We will now focus on student learning and hear from our student representative. Hallie Ledoux.
Thank you, Jen.
Sure.
Sorry, making sure that my phone's on. This Friday, freshmen at the high school will participate in SLAM Community Service Day. All freshmen are a part of the SLAM program, where seniors who have developed leadership skills in a class called Peer Leadership meet with 9th grade advisories twice a week for the whole year, with the goal of fostering community and creating a positive environment at the high school. Twice a year, these freshman advisories and their SLAM leaders participate in Community Service Day, where they go help out local nonprofits and then have a fun and competitive SLAM, we call it Olympics, on the turf afterwards. We're super thankful to all the organizations who are letting us come out and help them this year, including Shelburne Farms, South Burlington Parks and Recreation, and a bunch of other ones. October 14th is testing day at the high school, so students will be completing several tests, including the SAT, the PSAT, and then the NWEA, ELA section and math section. We wish good luck to everyone who's doing that. And next, elementary schools have started their open houses. So this is an opportunity for guardians to meet their students' teachers and get to know their school community a little better. Chamberlain's open house is being held as we speak. And Rick Marcotte Central Schools is tomorrow, the 9th, from 6 to 7 PM. Since my announcements were pretty short, I wanted to address a proposal me and Momen have for the board. If I'm correct, we're not allowed to discuss it right now, right? But I can propose
Bring it
it.
up, yeah.
Okay. So our main proposal is that me and Momen would like to allow school board student representatives to informally vote during action items and other things such as, like, we just approved the like announcements and everything for the day. The reason we bring this up is we feel like student voice is essential during discussions about our education. And by allowing student representatives to informally vote, the community will have an opportunity to clearly see our opinions on a subject. And also it will hopefully increase us and future student reps' participation in discussion times, and create a sense of belonging as a member on the board. Details of this, we would just be allowed to say like yay or nay, or raise our hand when it's applicable or applicable. And if allowing us to speak like makes the count confusing in any way, we could always just raise our hands to signify us saying yes. And we understand that our vote wouldn't count towards the board's final decision as we're not elected members, but we think it would be important for it to be in the minute notes and to let the community see what we are feeling.
Can we-
So,
Can we put that on the agenda for next week?
Yeah, let's put it on for the next week. 'Cause we're building our agenda for next week.
I'm not confident, but I think other boards let their student reps do
Burlington does.
this.
Yep.
In other districts, so we could always see, like, if there has to be something in writing about it, they probably have something in another district we could call.
Yeah, Burlington High School does, Burlington School District probably does it, so we can.
Yeah, so that's all I have.
Awesome.
Great, I appreciate that. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is action items. Before the board discusses or acts on any action item, we will invite public comment specific to that item. Speakers will have up to 3 minutes to share remarks related to the item under consideration. So the first item that we have is policy 2.9 amendment. Faculty and staff allowed to discuss any matter of public concern, and this is our 5th reading. Would any members of the public like to speak to this item before the board discusses and considers action? Anybody online? Okay, so hearing none. I will. I was gonna share my screen, we can, it's a pretty simple one here. I was gonna just share my screen, but I can't. See. Well, there's a link to it. Somebody else will be able to pull it up and. I just wanna share.
Should we just?
Oh, I've got it right here. I can share it.
Read it too.
I got it. There we go. This way, anybody that's online can also be able to see it, perhaps. So if you guys can see my screen up there?
Yeah, we can see
See
it.
my screen. So here is the amendment right here, policy 2.9. This is the final version, and it says to be adopted October 1st. This was on the agenda last week and we postponed it to this week. And it just states, I move that the policy governance resolution adopted by this board of school directors be amended by adding subsection 10 to section 2.9 communications support to the board to read as follows. Item 10, prevent faculty and staff from communicating with the board regarding matters of public concern, including district policies, procedures, and budgets. And Seamus has provided some information here in his statement regarding the purpose of this amendment. Recognizing that employees already have the First Amendment right to speak about matters of the public. Of public concern. However, there's been confusion and fear in the district surrounding this right from both management and labor. And so by adding this executive limitation, we ensure that everyone is clear and talking about matters of public concern is okay. And so again, this is something that I know there's been some discussion that our policies cover this and this is not needed. But I believe that my position on this before was that I do believe it's needed until we have an opportunity perhaps to go through and tighten up some of our policies and ensure that that everything is crystal clear for all involved. So that is the language. And I will now open up. Does anybody else have any comments or discussion about this? What?
So I was wondering if Joe had any,
Yeah, so I think that, as written, I don't think there's any concerns. I don't think it gives anybody any more or less rights than they already have. I would say I'm relatively new here, but I think part of this came from maybe concerns about an employee's ability to file a complaint against the superintendent. And I would not be opposed to that being part of this amendment. I think it makes sense if, because every employee in the district works for me. If somebody did have agreements for me, I think that it would be awkward for them to have to go to HR because the HR director works for me. I think it would be totally appropriate if somebody had complaint about my behavior or my conduct, that they should feel free to go to the board, to report that. Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I think it gives people, an opportunity to voice their displeasure.
I agree. I think that and we'll be talking about this in a bit here regarding how we can leverage the VSBA to help support some of our review and audit of policy. And I think for a district policy, we have some work to do with our grievance process. And I would say that, could perhaps provide a little bit of clarity on something like that.
I would not want that. I mean, I think any complaint about anybody else, I think should come to the superintendent, but if they complaints about me, you need to go to the supervisor.
There needs to be other channels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Jen, I like how you put that in with really clearing up the chain of what the protocol is, because I feel like there's a lot of confusion about it, and that would be extremely helpful. And I also just wanted to point out, and maybe the public already knows this, but it would be confusing to me that it says, starts with prevent faculty and staff, and just that it's written as a limitation. So this
Right.
is something that the superintendent could not do. It's not.
Yeah, it's connected to the previous sentence in the policy itself, which says shall not.
Exactly. yeah.
Well, I don't think it says shall not, it says should not or something like that.
It leads it in a way that makes sense, but I agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was.
Now, when I was reading it, was this actually prevented, so it's why I'm actually getting 2 points.
Okay. So I will now entertain a motion to approve policy 2.9, faculty and staff allowed to discuss any matter of public concern.
I'll make the-
Young's making the motion.
I'll second.
And Laura seconds. To approve policy, is there any discussion?
I guess I would just say that I understand what you added to that, Joe, and I think maybe that clear language would work well in what Jen is talking about, that particularly putting forward the procedure that was accessible to employees, would help cover that, issue. That's an important one. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay, any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
I
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. To approve that. Oh, got it all?
Sure, do
Okay.
it. Why not?
All right. Second item is our permanent superintendent search. The action meant to be taken is the formation of a permanent superintendent search committee and decision on utilizing potentially the VSBA as part of this permanent search. Would any members of the public like to speak to this item before the board discusses and considers action? Yes. Please come forward.
Hi, Bridget Burkhart. Just a suggestion, that for a future board discussion, really probably not even tonight, is just that in the past, it's worked really well to have two really big groups. I know that we needed a small nimble group in terms of the interim superintendent search, but to draw in a lot of community and a lot of staff. So in the past, big searches have had a very big staff group that was very well managed by someone who was appointed, who had done that before. Pat Phillips, who used to be a principal at the high school, did a really great job for a previous principal search that we did. And then there's usually a very big community group. It just really helps everyone feel like their voices are heard, even if they're not voting, to just see a lot of the candidates and really talk about what they hope to see in the full-time superintendent. So just a suggestion. That's all.
Yep. Great feedback. Is there anyone online? Any comments? Right. Thank you again for those comments. Any other discussion surrounding this?
I'm having a phone call tomorrow. with, VSBA
Yes.
concerning that. You are invited to be out if you can make that.
Yep, I accepted.
It's important, great. Friday.
So I think the one thing that I would like to add, is. You know, when we went through the interim superintendent search, I remember we had heard from two. Groups, one was the VSBA, and I cannot recall, it was like, was it $12,000 for that search?
For VSBA,
For VSBA?
yes.
And would it be the same amount? Can we clarify, like?
That's one of the
Okay.
things we want to get clarified, and the other group was Alma, I think.
The other group was the Alma Advisory Group,
Right.
and their cost was 32% of the superintendent's base salary.
So we figured what, 60,
Whatever, yeah, it was like six.
a lot more.
It's a lot more.
A lot more.
So,
Like 5 times
That
more.
wasn't really not.
Um, so, you know, and the thing was, I really feel like and we talked about this last week, the interim search that we did for those that were part of that committee, I feel like it went really well. And I think that the VSBA did just a fantastic job. So,
I would agree.
be close to 60,000.
Yes, I was right, 60.
Yeah.
60,000.
And that feedback that we got from Daisy last week, that saying, you know, originally she was thinking like that we would go with someone more like,
National.
the national.
search.
And then after working with VSBA, she was really impressed with the professionalism and what they did, and that she thought they would be great to do this group.
And
Yeah.
we heard
And
also,
specifically, they had national reach as well, which she did not expect.
Oh, yes, because we have
Right.
now talked
Oh,
about,
right,
so,
yeah,
yeah.
And I know there was discussion that if there was, and I don't know if anything was left over from the interim search. It was mentioned that it was 12,000,
Oh,
and if they
Right.
spent 12,000, that could.
Right, yes.
But I don't know what, if anything was left.
Yeah,
over.
and it could,
It's a,
well, I mean, the permanent, I would imagine is gonna be a bigger effort, so
It
I
is.
don't.
but that's a good point, because I think a lot of the legwork has been
Has
done.
been done.
Like, and most importantly, like, I think relationships too. That's, I do think reach out as a group. I think we can do it again, yes, and obviously it'd be a bigger group and we have time to do that. And
But I am interested, I really appreciate your feedback because I think you're spot on. I think we really, and we did have a really tight timeline on this last one. We had to be nimble and just, and even then. You know, VSBA had only recommended, I think, 7 people on the search and we had 14, so,
Both these groups will recommend big groups.
okay,
Yes,
so
both
we'll
of them
just.
will recommend that.
need-
So I don't, yeah.
So we have this as an action item, not that we are specifically taking any action right now, except that we are initiating the search, and I think we wanted to put it as action so we could hear from the public. That was part of the reason we had it there, but more to come, and we'll talk more about it next week.
Right, and then, yeah, so there'll be presentations and. So,
Is part of our action to formally establish a committee for? this?
not tonight, no, because I think we want to work with one of these groups. And they're gonna guide us through that whole process and. And also form the committee, right, yeah, so. If there's like faculty and then there's community and it's, we just went through this superintendent search at Essex, and it was huge. So,
I mean, I think the only thing that I think it's premature to do too much with it, you know,
Yeah, I don't-
other than we are creating a superintendent search committee.
That was.
But we're not going to identify,
Yeah.
yeah, we are creating, so that is the discussion, and then again, the reason that this specifically came up as an action is because on action items, we have an opportunity to hear from the public, and we wanted the public to weigh in as we're formulating all of this.
and there's gonna be a lot of time to weigh into. This will take a while to form the.
So no motion is being passed or anything right now, just for that reason. All right, so the next item under our action is monitoring report 2.6 superintendent succession. And my understanding is that this action is meant to be taken as an update of the current succession superintendent plan. Before we get to that, would any members of the public like to speak to this item before the board discusses and considers action? Anyone online?
No.
Online? Okay. All right. Turn it over to Dr. Joe.
Yeah, so the last time this was updated, Kristen Romick was serving as the acting superintendent. I am now the interim superintendent, so we need case I get hit by a bus, you need to have a plan, right? So, this plan would include the three people that we know have, superintendent licensure, which is Kristen Romick, Nicole Carter, and Suzanne Grunling. It does not mean that all three would serve as active. It would be that those would be options, for the board to consider if anything were, to happen to be that incapacitate. So I recommend you approve it, so we can move forward. Right, it doesn't happen.
Right, doesn't happen. All right, very good. So is there, all right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the monitoring report 2.6 superintendent succession.
I move to accept the report 2.6.
All right, and second,
Second.
Austin. Okay, so it's been moved by Laura, seconded by Austin to adopt the revised superintendent succession 2.6. Is there any discussion?
Just wanted to discuss, really the only thing that's changed was that Joe is mentioned in there as the interim superintendent, but there's nothing else that changed. Those were the three names that were on for.
So at that time, there's only two in the succession because Kristen is the acting superintendent, so now there's three in the
Changed
succession
it.
plan.
Changed it and then changed, now we're changing it again. But yes, okay,
Right.
thank you. I see.
How long, sorry, how long are the licenses good for?
I'm new to Vermont. Mine is good for a year at this point and I can renew it and I don't know the answer. I wonder if there's anybody in the
5 years?
5 years, 5 years, yeah, for a typical person who's gone through the system here.
I wasn't sure if he was saying I know or if it's 5 years.
You're saying both, you're saying I.
Both.
It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. All right, so any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed say no. All right, motion passes. All right, the next topic on our agenda are discussion items. First up, budget. So during our special meeting last Wednesday, October 1st, we discussed the development of the 2026-2027 school budget. For those who were not in attendance, Jesse Baker, South Burlington City Manager, was present and discussed how the municipal budget and school budget are created very differently. The discussion ultimately revolved around various scenarios the board would like to present to central office for creating the next budget, which includes, and I know this may not be the exact order, but this is the way I kind of got it in my head. Option number 1 would be no cuts to any roles or programming, which may add 10% or more to the existing budget. It was just, hey, what do you need to run the schools? What would be that ideal scenario? That's option 1. Option number 2 is a 0% increase to the budget. It would stay flat as to what it was on the 2025 ballot, which I believe was 71.5 million. Option 3 would be a midway point between 0 and no cuts, wherever that shakes out. And then option 4 would be an increase that parallels inflation, which was around 3.5 or 3.3%. Once central office has run the various scenarios and the board has selected an option to pursue that we believe the community can afford, that we would present, central office would create a budget in working with the schools and the principals following the Toussaint model that best serves the children and students with the resources that are then provided. The scenarios will be available. Those option 1 through 4 scenarios will be available in the next few weeks. I know Jean Marie's not here, but what was the target date we were looking at for that?
I believe the target date is by the end of October, if not the first week of November.
Okay.
And I would just, since I have the floor, if I could just say, there should not be any kind of ranking or weight given to the numbers of option 1, 2, 3, and 4. That
Right.
is, that we're doing 4 options. There's no
Exactly,
predetermination.
right. Yep, 100%. And so I would say that that would probably be something we can put into our parking lot for our agenda in November, in early November. I think that's gonna be an important thing that we'll have in our parking lot. Okay. Any other discussion or comments on that budget? Okay, All right, so the next item for discussion is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I just want to set the record straight on this one. This was something that I had actually brought forward. This was not some, I know we've got a new interim superintendent that's here, but actually this was something that I had brought up. And the reason I brought it up is because, a couple of reasons. One is in my onboarding part of learning about school boards, I've been watching school board meetings, and I'm seeing that there's a lot of school boards are actually doing the pledge. The other reason was because, when we went to a city council meeting with South Burlington, they also were leading the pledge at the beginning of their session. And so then I started looking into it, and I found that 98% of US schools, public schools, have policies that require an opportunity for students to recite the pledge daily. However, requiring an opportunity does not equal requiring participation. So just because it's offered doesn't mean that people have to do it. So students and the public at a board meeting may opt out for religious, philosophical, or other reasons. But the reasons, the justifications for doing it are to, again, align with the city council, with the majority of school boards across the state. We have a flag that's right there. And a couple of other advantages from my perspective, also realize, I mean, I'm very heavy into scouts, so I believe patriotism is very important, but it promotes patriotism and civic unity. It reinforces our educational mission and civic respect in action. I believe it encourages respect and reflection. It is tradition and community expectation. I believe many communities view the pledge as a long-standing tradition, especially in public institutions. And I think it can help the board connect with constituents who might see the pledge as part of civic life and a respect for public service. And lastly, I do believe it is a nonpartisan symbol. Ideally, the pledge transcends political differences. It is about allegiance to the country and its ideals, not to any party or policy. And when framed correctly, I believe it emphasizes unity and shared purpose rather than ideology. So it's just a discussion. I know it's come out on I think there was an email about it just briefly that went out. And so now I will zip it in any other discussion.
I was curious about what's the policy in schools, the South Burlington schools, and my first thought was aligning with what is taking place in our schools. So I don't actually know what happens in the schools because I'm not in there, and I don't know if, Ally, if you feel comfortable telling us what goes on in the high school, that would be great.
I can't speak for other schools, but in the high school, we don't do the Pledge of Allegiance. When I was in elementary school, it was a thing we did. And I don't know,
And at the middle school too, right? Because you go through Tuttle.
I did go through Tuttle, but we didn't do it while I was at the middle school. I believe like COVID happened when I was in sixth grade, so like half of my middle school, I wasn't even there.
I believe they do at Tuttle.
Yeah,
And tell me,
so
yeah,
they probably did, but
I tried to
I'm
find
not a
out
great
my
person to
high
ask about it.
but he's like, you know, he couldn't tell me what he
There
does.
is a teacher in the audience who might know the answer.
Please, anyone who has any insight into this, I would love to hear.
There, well, this is just discussion.
Just
It's
discussion.
discussion. No, you know what?
You're.
Yeah, we want,
Yes,
I'd
sorry.
be interested here. It is going to be, we had put it on action and then we took it off of action, but we did say it's a potential possible action.
That's the
So
loophole.
we'll read that.
Thank you.
No,
That
it's-
is a teacher at the high school.
Yeah.
For a while, we were doing it every Monday on announcements in the morning, but I don't feel like I recall
In the high
here at the high school.
Okay.
Mr. Craig used to come on anyway. That's awesome. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, good, thank you.
Somebody on.
Well, no, well, wait a minute, this is a discussion item, though, we're not taking action.
No, I
tonight.
asked your question. I just wanted to know if, I mean, I don't know.
No,
if
I think it's, but no,
I
but.
just want to provide history,
No,
like I'm not
but-
making
but-
any
but
comments.
Point of order, we are not addressing people from the gallery right now, are we? This is, we gotta stay consistent, this is a discussion item.
Okay, I mean, we are planning to action it next week. It's going to be on the action next week, so there will be discussion. I mean, I think it was dubbed as potential
It
action.
does, but it's in the discussion and it,
Okay.
we
that's
can
fine.
discuss.
we can discuss
I'm,
it,
I'm
yes.
gonna say that I will be doing some research because I'm very curious to find that out.
Okay.
So I'll get that
It
information.
used to be done here and then it abruptly stopped.
And we don't know specifically why, I think.
There was I was there actually. There was one person who had a politically motivated objection and said no, and it was just never done. So there was no action. There was no discussion.
It just ended.
It just ended, yeah. And Jen, I do want to say, as long as I'm speaking, I want to take 5 more seconds to say I absolutely support your rationale. That sense of unity and civic unity especially is compelling, and I completely agree. I couldn't have said it better. Thanks.
We used to have to do it on elementary school, high school. And when I was in the military, when you went to the on-base theaters, before any movie started, Pledge of Allegiance was played on the screen. Everybody had to stand up at the theater. So, I'm sure if it was the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem, it was one of the two, but it was just,
Yeah,
so I don't see why this is an issue.
yeah.
It used to be done. We should go back to doing it. We would be following what the city does.
I'm. Right, I know the city does it, I know we're at the elementary schools, the Tuttle. And, yeah, I know what very, I do appreciate your statement, having been on this board. Since 2022, and, you know, I'm sorry to say that this has become partisan, it really should not be, and I would like to reclaim it. I think. Yeah, I would love to see if maybe Dr. Joe could get a pulse on this because I think this has been so tumultuous sitting in this chair for over 3 years and to make any big decision right now. And I'm sorry to say that this is a big decision, but it is.
Yeah.
I know it, listen, I know. It's just, I know, we're in violent agreement. I'm telling you, my brother is in the Marine Corps, he's always in violent agreement. It's just that this, and I don't know, I would like to know more of the history about, you know, what happened and, I like, if, you know, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking to admin about that, feel better for it coming from,
We have a meeting on Thursday.
yeah.
See if they're.
I would love to find out from that avenue.
I mean, and again, going back to the idea of the civic respect, even in action. I mean, personally, I will say that I've got 2 kids right now who just recently graduated from South Burlington High School, who are in the military. And, you know, and they're, you know, they feel like they have the issues even sometimes going out in their uniform because of concern in this partisan issue, and it's really upsetting. I mean, these are our service people that we respect, and so anyway, that's another reason I think as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big issue. I don't, because if we follow suit with what it's been done,
No,
the city council does it. If we do it here, nobody would be forced to get up.
absolutely.
As long as it's optional,
Right.
100%. It's an easy decision. I don't,
course.
for me, but no.
I felt like it was an interesting, you know, when you brought it up, Jen, I've been thinking about it and I appreciated the chance to think about it because what Dan said earlier, we had to do it growing up and I did as well. And I'm only saying had to because I really didn't think about what I was doing. I
Right.
stood up and said the pledge
Yeah.
and that was fine. But since this has been something I knew we were gonna talk about, I started to think like, why is it partisan? What is the pledge? Like, let me think about the actual words of the
Right.
pledge and like, what do they mean? And I think most of us can agree that they're ideals. And we don't currently live in liberty and justice for all in our country. And so when I think about what it means, if I were to say the pledge, it's that I'm pledging to work for that until if it ever happens, but do whatever I can to work toward it. So I'm just saying, I really went through a lot of thinking when you suggested this, because I know it is something that people have a lot of feelings about one way or the other, and I just appreciated thinking about it from a different way. I do understand the optional thing and I appreciate the optional thing, but that also unfortunately puts someone in a position to either choose not to do it and then maybe feel uncomfortable that other people are wondering why they're not doing it. So
Exactly.
it's always,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff around it. I like that we're having this conversation and putting some thought into it.
And, you know, and I would like to hear from faculty, staff and admin.
Mhm.
I think that, and students, I don't know, Ally, what do you think?
I would say I don't know enough about it. I feel like I have a similar view to Emily. Like I would have to do a little bit more research into it to be able to have an opinion on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would love to, like,
Yeah.
Dr. Joe to give us a report, because if there's something going on in the schools that we should know about, because we're not in the schools, so we don't know. And at Essex High School, we don't do it either. I don't know why.
But again, it does feel like it's kind of an innocuous.
Yeah, and again, I would just like to remind the board that the board meeting belongs to the board.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can get opinions from teachers and principals about how they feel about it, but ultimately the board, it's the board's meeting and the board's
Oh my
decision.
gosh, thank you. I was just thinking that you were talking about in the school.
No, we're
Okay,
talking
sorry.
about
I-
just.
Just here.
Just
Oh my gosh,
here.
I got very confused.
Oh, no, we're talking about
Just-
just
I was
here.
thinking
This
it's
is
like
just our
why-
work
Okay,
meeting.
If
sorry.
somebody who works for the district is uncomfortable with the fact that
We
this
see.
board wants to do the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, if you're gonna sit around and not do something because one or two or a number of people are uncomfortable, we're never gonna get anything done.
Right, exactly.
And it's like Doctor just said, you know, this is the board's meeting. Reciting the Pledge of Allegiance shouldn't be something that is,
This is
you know,
difficult.
setting somebody's hair on fire.
Well, no, it should,
Sit
but
there and don't say anything.
you're right. But you know what? The subject that I teach, Spanish, shouldn't be getting people arrested, and it is.
All right,
And so that's what I'm saying, like, this is a loaded climate.
Yeah.
That is my job. And so I do think that it is right. We are representing the community, and I would like to know. So that is where I.
And I agree that it's the board's meeting and I understand what you're saying. I think it does seem like a little, we're the, you know, representing the district, but if the district isn't saying the pledge, if we're saying the pledge, it just, I don't know, I'm curious
Well,
about.
Yeah. So we did take an oath to uphold the law. That's a part of our board's service, and there's nothing incongruent about saying the pledge with that
I'm just,
with that oath. And I do like I really appreciate, Emily, that you brought in a level of skepticism, right? Because I don't say this with a lack of understanding for the political motivation for folks to object, right? They're making a political statement that may be very righteous, but it also doesn't necessarily negate a particular understanding of the Pledge of Allegiance as a civic unity symbol. Think of after 9/11, we saw flags everywhere, and we treated them as a symbol that bound us as a nation against an external threat, right? And it's, to me, it feels very sad that it takes an external threat and death and destruction for us to see those symbols of unity. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much.
So I'm wondering, so we've had this for 15 minutes. Do we want to put this on the?
It's on
agenda
next week,
For
yes.
action item?
It's on for next week. Yeah, I put it in the parking lot as an action for next week, because, because, you know, the discussion tonight was to hear all of this, and then next week we would action it, allow the public to speak next week more on this, and then we would take a motion to adopt it or not, is the thought. But this was good. This was a good conversation. All right, so moving on. The next item for discussion on our agenda is project management. And during our meeting last week, we started creating a tracker of the various items that we are working on. And the question there was, do we have any updates to share? I will share my screen again. Let me see if I can share my screen. It's share. Is it up there? You guys see it? Yes. Well, you know, these are the now elections also. And. Sharing the screen.
It's here. It's here, Joe.
It's not up there.
Okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's out of our control, but.
Okay.
I get it for that.
that's fine.
It is on Zoom.
Okay, so I unfortunately do not have access. I only have view only on this right now. And this was something that Seamus had started to create. And these were the topics that we had had. So hoping that we can just run through these real quick. Michelle, we have you on point for monitoring reports and whether or not you had any update on that to share.
I do, but I do want to ask the board, do you do you want the 2-3 minute version? I also prepared some slides for in case folks are better visually, which is all to say that there's some progress. I don't have exact schedules and templates, but I can talk a little bit about how that discussion transpired and kind of where we're heading and what we plan, and what by we I mean Dr. Clark and I plan to bring to the board for discussion and action at some point.
Well, what would you like to do?
Tolerance level. I know there's some anxiety, I guess, around the staying on schedule. So are we on schedule? Are we ahead of schedule? If we're ahead of schedule, I will do the 10-minute version versus the 3-minute version.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. Are you able to share?
And I
your
would like to
screen?
just say point of order, it's not an anxiety issue, it is to keep it, it's professional to keep a meeting on schedule. So I just wanted to say that, thank you.
Can you should be able to share your screen. I think it,
Did a request come through for, there we go, multiple presenters can share, okay. Let me do that. And then I'm gonna ask the question that I ask all the time, which is, as soon as I put this in presenter mode.
overview of plan to improve policy monitoring.
Okay, and can you see the notes section or do you see the presentation view?
Just the presentation view.
Perfect, okay. So these are really only a few slides, but I tend to be very visual, and for others that are, hopefully they're a little bit helpful. So Joe and I met on Friday. We had a great meeting to just introduce ourselves to this topic and think about what how we're going to approach it, like get our arms around it. And so there are really two things I believe that we were charged with doing. One is to set a new schedule, because the truth is we are now behind. And we have a majority new board and we have a majority new central office. So starting this school year. So we want to be realistic. We want to talk about that in very specific ways about how to do that schedule in efficient and effective ways. And then we also want to create a plan for the substance of monitoring reports. And that will involve, as we understand it, perhaps forming a kind of template that we iterate on a bit, we bring to the board, we discuss, we improve, and then we launch those templates. So just as an overview, 4 brief topics, I wanted to kind of frame the discussion with what the goal is in terms of improvement and the benefits of doing high quality monitoring. A single slide, I think, on what policy monitoring is, and then importantly, I think what it is not. And this is level setting. This is, my understanding of policy governance. So this is not me dictating. This is me presenting what I know, and we can talk about it over time. policy monitoring schedule, and then our specific proposed next steps that we ended our meeting with. So first topic, our improvement goal really is as simple as bringing policy monitoring processes and substance into compliance with policy governance expectations. And there are some real practical benefits to that. The two big ones are we increase the impact of monitoring in terms of transparency and a so-called little a accountability value to the community. I can explain that, but I won't take time to do that now unless there are questions. Reduce the burden of monitoring on SBSD staff. And that is really in terms of shorter reports that are more narrowly tailored to communicate outcomes. Traditionally, what we've seen is a long list of things that the district is doing, which is really valuable information, but it's not monitoring. So what is monitoring? It is the process through which the South Burlington School District, I need to get rid of this, I'm blocking my view, through which the district exercises its duty, the board, sorry, exercises its duty to ensure that the district is making progress on meeting the district's ends and executive limitations policy goals, aka the policies that instruct the superintendent. This is direct language from our own policies. The policy monitoring process is intentionally rigorous and outcome focused, purposefully designed to define and monitor observable and measurable outcomes, and it reasonably informs the board and the South Burlington community that the board serves about how well the district is meeting policy goals. I think just as important is to define what policy monitoring is not. It is not an aspiration or hope. Our aspirations and hopes are really important. They guide our work, they give us a common goal, but they are not policy monitoring. A list of everything that the district is directly or indirectly doing, as I mentioned, is important. It's great information shared in appropriate forums, but when it comes to policy governance, it's kind of a Goldilocks test, too much, too little. We really are looking more at the outcomes in policy monitoring than we are at the inputs. And that's kind of the short story of it. It's also not a rubber stamp action by the board. We should be rigorously reviewing. We don't want to be overly critical. This is not necessarily our area of expertise. So we're not here in any way to tell the superintendent how to run the district, but we're also not here to say that anything you do, emphasis on any reasonable interpretation, is okay with us. We are accountable to the community, and we really do need to have better visibility into the district outcomes. And I really want to emphasize this. This is not punitive. We are not talking about accountability with, a hammer or what's the expression? Carrot and a stick. This is really intended to be formative in nature, where we all have a common understanding of where we are so that we can improve appropriately over time. Very quickly, there are really just 3 ways within our policies that we monitor, or that we're allowed as a board to monitor, either through internal reports, external reports, which would be something we would procure somebody outside of the district and the board to actually do the reporting. That would be a cost. My personal opinion, that's not particularly productive, but there may be circumstances at some point for certain reasons that would be necessary, but I don't personally see any right now. And direct inspection by the board is the other possibility. Our tradition is primarily internal reports, and I don't think we see in our initial conversation, and I don't expect the board would see any need to diverge from that tradition in any substantial way. So the first specific task that we're charged with is really to figure out what that schedule looks like. And what we talked about basically was that the approach will be to understand what makes sense. And what I mean by that is that data is collected for these various policies or related to these various policies that would be candidates for using in outcome measures that has a schedule itself. And so, something like the equity report we talked about last week, to ask for trend information on student achievement when we know that the results for the current year are embargoed until the end of October, early November, doesn't really make sense to demand an equity report prior to that, unless we want to consider something like having a leg year-end reporting. Given that it happens relatively early in the year, to me, it makes sense. And right now, we're actually planning our equity policy monitoring report for about November, which I believe was the tentative agreement. And so what is happening is Dr. Clark is working with the leadership to draft a new reporting timeline for fiscal year 26. And then we will begin talking about what that annual process looks like as well, because obviously, since we are behind, fiscal year 26 is going to look different than any schedule that we set for the future. It's going to be compressed. It's going to happen likely between January and June of 2026. And then for my part, I'm looking at drafting a template. And by template, this is not something prescriptive. This is something that lays out what are the parts of a high quality monitoring report to kind of guide that process. And that's it in a nutshell. So guiding principles, the reporting schedule will be compressed, as I mentioned, and scheduled from January to June of 2026. And then the annual schedule will be developed based on the assessment of when appropriate data is available to kind of maximize the reporting utility and the information that we're able to collect from the district through monitoring and share with the public via public monitoring. This is the schedule that is in policy. We will, I'm sure, use this as a guide, but we are fully free within policy requirements to move this around. Basically, this is a suggestion. It's not a requirement. But importantly, what this does is it defines the actual reports that need to happen. And the reports happen on the ends policies by our policy, which are basically the goals for our district. A lot of aspiration, as I mentioned before, are in those goals. They shouldn't be in the reports. And then the rest of them are mostly around the executive limitations.
Is that, I'm sorry, I just asked real quick, is that one page, if you go back, Michelle, because like, where's equity on that one?
Equity may have, let's see, emergency.
Can't see all the way to the.
Oh, yeah, because maybe it's another page, or it's just.
Did I cut it off? I have it up also on my computer. So let me take a look and see if I
think if I remember correctly.
shortcutted that. No, this is
Nothing's being removed.
no,
No, schedule
this is
back.
what's in policy right now.
Expand the ends a little bit, so instead of one ends report, we're gonna have 4 ends reports because we have 4 goals at the end, so we think that will be smarter.
It's great. No, I really like this, and you know what, it doesn't have to be exact right now too, I mean, this is an example that you're showing, but I appreciate what you're saying about the timing of some of these monitoring reports, because I felt like we were really under the gun to do equity earlier, like in July, and based on what you're now saying, you know, if we're looking for year over year information, you're not gonna have that until later in the school year, so it makes sense to do it at that time. Do it. when you
Yeah,
get-
you know what? I think this table was not updated to include equity. There's not a date on the table in our policy. But I know that our policy, our equity addition to policy was fairly recent. So I suspect that this was not updated. So we definitely do want a whole new schedule, right? This is as it's written in policy. This is a suggestion. I think it may have been followed historically. I have a feeling it hasn't been followed to the, the letter of the month column in here for quite a while now, which is not a criticism. It's the reality. But we want to be purposeful in how we schedule our policies. And another point I want to make about that too is that to the shorter part of what I was saying before, in terms of focusing on the expectations about monitoring under policy governance and it being about outcomes and not these just long lists and many, many links of all of the things that demonstrate what the district is doing relative to the policy, which again is not bad information. It just doesn't satisfy the purpose of monitoring. Assuming we are successful in more narrowly tailoring our monitoring reports to their intended purpose, we could actually look at doing, more, they're going to be shorter, right? So one of the goals is to actually reduce the burden of monitoring on the district, and make it more intentionally useful for all of us. It's not, in that case, it's by policy, it's intended as monitoring by the board, but it is the mechanism for communicating with the community about how we're doing. And it's also really useful information for the district at a high level, to augment how they're collecting data, how the operations are using data to inform their day-to-day work, right? To be able to step back into the big picture and see how we're doing. To me, that's valuable for everybody.
This is great. Great.
Yep. And so our target, what we did talk about, I know we're talking about getting a board retreat scheduled for December. We thought that might be, although we're not being prescriptive about that either, right? It's a suggestion that maybe that is where where Dr. Clark and I are able to bring to you our specific schedule proposal and our specific template proposal that we've worked out for board discussion, revision, improvement, updating, and eventual action. But the goal really is to begin, aside from the equity report, begin monitoring in earnest in January. And I don't see any reason that we can't do all of the monitoring. Although I'm going to rely on Dr. Clark to tell me, what's reasonable. After meeting with his staff and thinking about what's going to be going into these monitoring reports and when the data are available to kind of maximize their utility for all. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Great.
Thanks, Michelle.
Fantastic. Any other comments on that?
Actually, Dr. Clark, I would did I miss anything from our conversation? I went blah, 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 and I didn't invite you to speak on that.
We're very thorough and it's good work and I'm happy to be working with you on it.
So one of the other items that is on the list is, so my name shows up with the superintendent committees. And that may have been something that Seamus just put in for under curriculum and finance. I don't know that there's any update. I don't know if you have any update to share on the superintendent committees.
Yeah, that's gonna be part of my report if you wanna wait for that, or I can do
Okay.
it right now.
Okay, well, that's fine. We'll wait, if we can wait for that. The other items that we have, I'll just run through them real quick. We have Laura with the VSBA policy audit. I don't know if you've got any update.
No updates. It's one of the things we're talking about tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
I will say, if I can, I did have a conversation with the VSBA yesterday. I spoke with Debbie and Sandra. And one of the things that they had suggested was a board accelerator course and you have brought this up, Laura's brought this up many times before, that, training is good. There are 8 modules. They are 5 to 7 hours to complete. It would be done online. So this is, it would give everyone the foundation regarding what to know about policy governance and, and then one of the questions they were asking is if the board wants to stick with policy governance or pivot to a different model. Which I don't think that's really what we want to do at this point, but that was something they brought up. The cost, because there are more than 5 of us, would be $300 a person. That's a reduction. It's normally $350. And we would look at the 7 of us doing it, plus Joe, Dr. Clark would also be participating, so 2,400
students too. How many enrollment?
We could definitely, yeah, explore that.
You don't have to.
It's a
We
possibility.
could always do it together so that you don't have to
Yeah,
wait for two of
yeah,
us.
they estimate about 40, Ally, they estimate about 40 minutes a week, so it'd probably take you like 25.
Yeah.
But maybe 10, I don't know.
One thing that they did make very clear, and I think it's important to convey this, is that a weakness of policy governance is that it is threatened by board turnover, which our board has undergone significant turnover in the last few years. And I think we're in a good place right now, but that training and continuity of the board and understanding policy governance and having that institutional knowledge is very important. Particularly for sufficient handover and onboarding of new board members. It's really critical.
And so when I came on in August of 2022, we never had training as a full board. I mean, I've had like, I know Tabitha Moore did training, but we've never had policy governance training as a full board. We've done it, like 2 of us here, 3 of us there. But we never, and especially not with the superintendent. So I think this will be really.
It's a huge improvement.
Yeah.
They also will be sending over because I talked to them about a litany of things, and I think we'll talk about that again tomorrow. We talked about the policy governance, the module training. We talked about more specific policy governance training with a specific trainer that can come in and help guide us and answer questions. We talked about doing auditing of monitoring reports, which I would like to do after perhaps even we get through this initiative that you're working with Michelle, I think would be great. Again, all of this is to be lockstep with VSBA and just raise the bar on what South Burlington is doing in regards to policy governance and delivering on our ends. And then the other thing that they also have indicated that they can do is, the auditing policies and helping support superintendent evaluation. Not just helping to find a superintendent, but then when we do the annual review of our superintendent to help provide some coaching and guidance on that. So they will be sending us a work plan and a 6-month schedule in the next few weeks, which then we can review and decide upon, like it's a la carte, what do we want to take and work with them on. And so I think that collaboration with these experts is really going to be a key for our success.
Use the VSBA for Tom Sullivan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that would be really great. It just protects everybody.
And they also talked about, having a mentor, so I don't know if that was something I reached out, like getting a mentor for our interim superintendent and having someone that you can work with also, just again, professional development and having that support for you. The last thing, and they suggested, is that coming up at the end of this month is the annual VSA Vermont Superintendent Association and VSBA Vermont School Board Association Conference, which is happening in Burlington on the 29th and 30th of October. The theme of the conference is Board Superintendent Relationships and Strengthening Collaboration. The first day is a half day for board officers and superintendents. There's a pre-conference workshop that starts at 3 p.m. The cost is $100 per person. And then the conference on October 30th is a full day for the whole board, plus the superintendent, and the cost of that is $315. There will be several keynote speakers and workshops on how to center and elevate the student voice. Working through conflict, continuous learning, and professional development for the board. And again, the theme is all about building strong governance teams. Registration closes a week from today, October 15th. And there's details on their website. It's www.vtvsba.org. And Joe, you had suggested doing a roll call to see who would be interested in going.
And by that, I don't mean vote, but if anybody that wants to go, if you let me know, we can get you registered and get that paid. I'm already registered. I'm going for both days. And if you are interested and able, the deadline's coming up, but we can take care of your registration for you.
It's a really good conference. I only get 3 personal days and I've already used them up for the superintendent search, so I gotta save 1 for the next, so I can't go, but I would really recommend it. It's really good.
I'll go.
I'll go.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Austin, you'll go? Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yes, please.
Michelle?
I just need to check my work schedule and then I'll.
Okay, yeah, let me know.
So you'd be there on the 30th, because I think the 29th is.
It's the 30th.
It's the 30th is a Thursday.
You know, is there an option to go, is that all, like, when they say all day Thursday, what time does it end?
I think it's
I
on
didn't
the-
I think that's like at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock,
hour.
okay.
Yeah, I think it is too, and it starts at like 8.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Austin, Jennifer, Michelle, and
Yeah, I'll just
You'll let me
check
know.
if I have anything that day.
And check Shamus also if she's.
thank you.
Joe, should we follow up over email for coordination?
Sorry.
Should we follow up over email to coordinate?
I will make sure that the landowner reaches out to you to give you all the information you're gonna need.
Thank you.
And it's local, so.
It's
Oh,
great.
that's awesome.
Although Lake Maury was also good.
It's pretty nice too.
Yeah.
Holiday Express.
Yeah, yeah.
Other items that were on that action, we had Seamus discussing IDP, he's obviously not here. Emily, we have student rep engagement. I don't know if there's any information to share.
No, I do wanna just make sure I'm gonna connect with Ally, just to, make sure I'm clear on like what it is that they would like to make sure that they're, I think I know, but it's better if we communicate, so it's absolutely clear. So I'll email you guys about that. Thank you.
And then I think, I don't know if we were adding them onto the distribution list for with Delina or not, or
I
that's,
think that's part of Emily's.
it's part of that.
I mean, I think that,
Okay.
if that's possible, would really help
Right, I think,
clear up a lot of, just get that communication into you guys. So I guess one of my, I think, concerns is, well, what if something comes through, but I'm not sure if you if you need to know, like the conversation that Austin had 2 weeks or a week ago, and you had been like, oh, it would have been nice to know about that. I'm not sure I would have thought to let you know, so that's why I really wanna clear up how to best, and I think a distribution list would be like,
that would
do you have my
I think
house?
that would be really good.
So,
Yeah,
well,
that's where you know. It's good.
I'm not sure if there's any. Yeah,
I think it will be fine.
just let us know, I'll let you know.
All right, next up, we have Austin redistricting with legislators. I don't know if you've had a chance to.
Yeah, I have not done any formal work here, but I spent the last week understanding sort of the current state of play with the task force. There's some proposed maps that have already come out that I'll probably need to look at. I've done my own sort of like different assemblages of different districts to understand the range of outcomes and combinations that would keep us in that 4,000 to 8,000 student range. Just so that we can maybe appreciate, the various different combinations we could end up in. We are already starting to see some districts proactively express interest in partnering, so like the 3 Upper Valley districts are going to raise their hand, and as I understand it, that's not binding, but I think it's probably good to be proactive now, so as this is a discussion item for the board, I have not yet reached out to the redistricting task force, but I would like to quickly, for the sake of being proactive, and if the board thinks it's appropriate, I will do that this week, or if we want to have more conversation first and gather insight from the community about what we want to bring into that conversation, we can do that.
You can contact Martine, she's one of the co-chairs, so, yeah.
I just want to see if we felt as a board we were ready for that,
I mean, I think information is knowledge. I think if you have the information, we're gonna have a community forum coming up in December, and, if you do some legwork and get some information now, maybe that's something you can report back on when we have that community forum.
Have you signed up for the meetings, like
There's one on the 10th that I
since you missed?
I'm not serious.
There's
The one on the-
do you have, I can send you Martine's email, she's a good friend, of mine. she. So I
That'd be-
can send that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great, I'll do it right now.
That would be my take.
We'll get going then.
Anybody else?
No, I think, yeah, as long as you're not gonna make any commitments on that. Or, so I don't think there's anything wrong with you
Yeah.
gathering information in this early stage.
It's gonna be setting up the district.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna come with maps and outlines.
I
They'll hire you.
was gonna say, that's gonna be fun, if you're
Yeah.
involved in that job.
Great. And then the last thing we had is VSBA training, and again, we'll talk more about that tomorrow, Laura, for having VSP and potential training happening at the December retreat. When that, occurs. Okay. Let's see, all right, so I think that concludes our discussion items, so we will now move on to reports and receive an update from our superintendent, Dr. Porter.
All right, so the first, I have several items, but the one there written on the agenda is the update on the superintendent committees, and you'll probably recall that the board asked to start with two committees, the Curriculum Advisory Committee and the Finance Budgeting Committee. I would say the Curriculum Advisory Committee is well underway in its planning. The finance budgeting is slightly behind due to its budget season, and Jean Marie is on vacation this week, and there's a lot more stuff going on there. The Curriculum Advisory Committee, Nicole is running that, and she is has started soliciting members, and really what we're looking for is a good representation of teachers, administrators, a board member or two, or a board member or two, and some community members. And we'd really like maybe community members who have maybe some insights into curriculum instruction, maybe they're professors, maybe maybe they have some role that they could be, add some insights. And just a reminder, there's sometimes when you form committees, there's some anxiety that comes up, and it's just a reminder, this is a superintendent's advisory committee. These committees will not be making decisions. We'll be doing a study, we'll be looking into, new trends and possible, additions, or maybe what can we scale back, those kinds of things. The agendas will mostly be driven by the administrative team, but we do absolutely want feedback, and it is advisory for me to see if we need to make some, make some changes or whatnot. So again, that, and I guess I should also say Nicole has been an absolute rock star in terms of she's covering for somebody on leave. She's been doing just an amazing job, and that is also putting the committee a little bit behind. And I thank you for your patience and understanding with that.
So can I just ask a question, like on that curriculum advisory committee, what would be some examples of things that like you might discuss?
So we might say, okay, AI is this thing, what should the district adopt some sort of AI platform that is what we adopt as a whole, so that we purchase it, so we have support among for our staff in using it, or maybe it's what kind of I've heard in my meetings that I'm going around to the community that there's really a desire to have some of those hands-on classes, maybe at the middle school. So should we look at, shop and family and consumer science at the middle school? And it'll all be, it'll be research-based and data-based, so there, whatever topics come, we'll do some research. Also, there'll be some presentations, hey, we have this new program, we want to share it with the community, and we're gonna spread it through the Curriculum Advisory Council. Maybe we want to adopt a new math program or a new English textbook. Those are all the kinds of things that would be screened through the Curriculum Advisory Council.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So those are the committees. A few other things, really exciting. Congratulations to our boys golf team. They won the state championship yesterday. Congratulations to the Wolves. It's really outstanding. I just want to say, I've been the superintendent for 25 days and we have a state championship already, so.
Fantastic.
Not bad.
Yeah, you're getting your money's worth. I had nothing to do with it. These kids are great. It is Principal Appreciation Month. October is, we have 10 outstanding principals and assistant principals here at South Burlington. I don't think people really appreciate the amount of time that goes into their work and the amount of stress, but also the level of empathy and care that they lead with, that they really are focused on increasing educational opportunities for our kids and caring for the staff who work in their building. So I'm really grateful for our principals, and I wish them all a happy National Principals Month. And I can't give them a day off, but I'm gonna tell them thank you.
So are we doing anything for our principals? Are we having people volunteer and bring the or baked goods, or how could we reach out to people to recognize our principals?
Well, do I hear volunteers to do the principal
Big drive.
Yeah, something, I honestly, I don't know of anything that's going on. They are absolutely appreciative of anything that we do, and I think they would be more than grateful if anybody in the community wanted to, to stop by, shake their hand, or bring them a donut.
I know in the past PTO, at least at the elementary schools, has always done something,
Okay.
so I wonder if they're.
I know teacher, I mean, I'm new in my past, teacher appreciation month or week was always really well attended by PTO principals, not necessarily always, so.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Find
so,
out more about that.
so for anybody listening, it is National Principals Month.
Whole month, the whole month,
Whole month.
whole month.
The whole
Got a lot of
Wow,
time.
you get a whole.
They do get a whole
Wow.
month, they do get a.
Fantastic, okay.
Okay, and it's a month, a great big full moon too.
And
you
there's
know that.
10, there's 10
We have 10 principals and assistants.
assistant.
Yeah, 5 principals and 5 assistants. Okay, so, I did meet with, Sophia Babbitt. She's the new executive director of the South Burlington City Center Collaborative. And they are, her job is to, find ways to make the new downtown area vibrant. And we talked about ways that schools might be involved in that, what kind of resource. I think that schools too often ask the community, what can you do for us? And we don't say enough, what can we do for the community? So I talked to her about, the possibility we have with music performances or art or whatever it might be that we could help with the downtown. I am gonna have an item in this week's board update, because they do have memberships, and you can buy an individual membership for $50 or an organizational membership for $100. I don't know how things work necessarily up here, but it wouldn't be uncommon, where I've come from, that a school district would buy an institutional membership. So you can get in on their news and be part of their meetings and those kinds of things. And typically the superintendent would attend those kind of things on behalf of the school board. So you'd be thinking about that, whether you think it'd be more appropriate for me to join as an individual or the district to join. And again, it's a difference between $50 and $100. We had I was invited to the South Burlington City Council on Monday, because of, the recent safety concerns there with needles at Marcotte. And I just want to say again, what a great relationship we have with the city and the police department. I was also there for Chief Rose swearing in, so that was really nice. And they've just been really, really helpful. I know we have families that are frustrated because this has been going on for some time. And I think the folks that spoke at the meeting had some really good ideas about how we might even make the area safer in terms of maybe some legislation that the council might need to pass. And I know that they're considering it seriously. And I know that they are as concerned about student safety as we are. On any given day, there are more South Burlington citizens in our schools than in any other place, right? So they're not just our students, they are their citizens, and I know that they care deeply for them. So I thank them for their partnership. Our own Monica DeRochers here is a finalist for the Athena Young Professionals Award. So we want to congratulate her. And finally, this listening tour, I've been going on my 3Q meetings, my 3-question meetings, those have kicked off. I had 4 of them so far, 3 yesterday and 1 today. At this point, there's probably 12 that are scheduled. My goal is to have 40 to 50 between now and Thanksgiving. And I have a lot of stuff in the works, and it's great. And Jennifer asked, is there a chance that the board can come to those? And the answer to that is yes. So what I will do is I'll put together as the calendar gets filled up, I will share with the board when and where I'm meeting. If you would just like to come and sit and just hear what people are saying. And if you're part of the group, you're welcome to participate also, or you can be a fly on the wall and just listen to the feedback that we're getting. But you should expect, whether you come to those meetings or not, I will absolutely keep you informed as we move along about the feedback that I'm getting, so you can really get a sense of how many people have participated and what are the things that they're saying. Because eventually we're going to take this as part of, as one element of data for a new strategic plan. So it's been a busy week.
That's great.
Well, that's great. If you can create a calendar when you get it all together with all the dates and share it, and then if people have the opportunity to weigh in, because I know we've got to be careful to avoid quorum. So, you know, I don't think we're gonna have 4 people necessarily showing up, but.
Yeah, and I'll probably do it as a Google sheet and I'll share it with you and I'll just keep updating as. I'll only put the ones that are confirmed there, the location and the place of the organization.
Perfect.
And as I confirm more, I'll just keep uploading.
Yeah, and maybe if we wanna make it to one, we could let you know, and then you could add our names to that day,
Yep.
so we know.
Who's
okay,
there.
Yeah,
And I could do editing rights if you want to put your own name.
well, I don't know if we're allowed to add.
Oh, okay, well, all right.
All right.
That's my
That's-
only.
Okay. Point well taken. I will reach out to me anytime.
Put that on you, yes.
You are more than welcome. They're really good. People are very, very thoughtful. And I can tell you, after 4 meetings, people love their schools. And people realize, like any school, we have work to do, and that's exciting.
But the first step is talking about it.
Yeah. I make 3, there are 3 ground rules when I go, and I tell them, first of all, I want you to be, well, first of all, I'm not gonna solve any problems today. Right? I will not solve problems, but I need to hear about the problems before we can solve anything. Second, I ask the people, to be as candid as they possibly can. We can only get better if we really know what the meat of the issue is. And then third, I ask them, no names, please. If there are any personal vendettas, please reach out to me individually, but this is not a meeting to, to talk about personal experiences you've had with people. It's an overall general kind of thing. So people are really respectful and very thoughtful, and I'm grateful to them.
It's fantastic.
And that's my report.
Great. Any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda planning for our next meeting, which is next Wednesday, October 15th. And I just want to state that I think typically our meeting schedule is the first and the third Wednesday of the month. My understanding is the meeting last week was considered a special meeting because we wanted to start talking about the budget. But the reason that was not a regular scheduled meeting was because it was Yom Kippur. And I think that the special meeting got called in towards the end there in order to start talking about the budget. And so we will have, so we want 2 meetings every month. That's this tonight, and then we will have them on the 15th, and then beginning again in November, we'll get back onto a regular schedule without quite so many special meetings, because we have definitely heard the community and the board is saying the same thing, like we gotta limit that. All right,
That's also like, out of respect for our staff too.
yes.
Because it's a lot to ask people who've been here since 7 o'clock to still be here 12 hours later, so.
So one thing in regards to agenda planning, we floated around an idea of a potential new template for planning our agenda or for the agenda that breaks out more specifically where public can provide comment and just a slightly different layout. And I know, Dr. Joe, you're talking with admin about that right now as to whether or not that may be used, or if that would be something that may potentially come out next week. I don't know.
Yeah, I've shared it with administrators, haven't gotten a lot of feedback, and I think generally that's a good sign, right? If they didn't like it, they'd say, no.
Okay.
But I think it's clean, and I think it makes sense, so.
Okay, so folks, you may be seeing that beginning as soon as next week. All right, so for the agenda on the 15th, we will have student report, a superintendent report, we will have the superintendent search update, a project management update, consent agenda, those are kind of the big topics. And then for parking lot items, some of the things that I've captured is when we are going to have our retreat. I just needed confirmation for when that's happening. I think the next community forum that we're planning to do is Wednesday, December the 3rd, I think is our community forum. But I think Seamus had sent out a, whatever that thing's called.
The doodle.
The doodle for our retreat, and I don't recall what exactly, if we have any confirmation on that.
There's no confirmation.
Okay, so,
And unless it's on a weekend, I cannot go.
yeah, I think we were looking at a Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, And I think Emily, you needed it on the weekend also. So those are, so for the parking lot items is confirmation on when we will have our retreat. Confirmation on the community forum, which again, I think is December 3rd, but I think it's nice to have that out there so people have it on their mind. We're looking to move the Pledge of Allegiance to an action item on the agenda next week. I think we should also consider adding the student representative vote as an action item on the agenda next week. And then add to the agenda in early November. So this is definitely a parking lot, the discussion of the 4 budget options. And then I would also suggest, unless there's a reason otherwise, that we remove the executive session from next week's meeting unless people are aware of something that's coming up. So we would start.
As long as, you know, I guess I had anticipated something that did not happen today in executive session in terms of an update. So
Okay.
that would be the only reason if there was any kind of update.
Okay,
But other than that, I am 100% in favor
Yeah,
I would agree.
and we can move that to another day. It doesn't have to.
Yeah, it doesn't have
That
to be.
update could be at our meeting in
Later,
November. That's fine.
Cause I don't know when any of those things are happening, so, but that would be the recommendation at this time, unless we hear something that
Yeah,
would
I know nothing right now.
require.
Yeah, why don't you get rid of it for now?
yeah.
And then we could put it on if we need it.
If we need it. Got it. All right. I don't know who's doing that. I mean, I've got all the notes. I'm happy to start putting that together, but I think Seamus will be back, so.
Yeah, I think typically Delina, has a draft, and Seamus adds to that, and then
Okay.
I kind of review it. Yeah,
Okay,
Okay.
and we'll just get all these comments there.
sounds good.
All right. Any other topics for agenda planning that need to be brought up?
I would like to just well, not introduce. I want to build off of what Dr. Clark shared. I did also attend the presentation and discussion about safety with the city council this week. And one thing that occurred to me and that I have absolutely no answer to is a question. Is there something, so the prevailing comment and request of the city council, which they could not address there, was can we consider, develop, and pass a city ordinance that, and they use very specific terms, within 500 feet around school play areas, so on and so forth, these activities are not permitted. And that actually then gives, the opportunity to actually act on removing people from that area or removing that activity from that area. We all know what we're talking about. I don't know that there's probably not anything specific we can do, and I'm not remotely interested in virtue signaling, right? Like spending a whole lot of time talking about, oh, we support and we're in favor of. But is there anything practical that we can do to be a part of that conversation and advocate for not even assuming, like, do we make it a discussion item? Is the board in favor of advocating for? How do we advocate for, if we are in favor as a board of any particular ordinance or aspects of ordinances that we would want input into? So it's a really general thing, but it seems to me that there could be an opportunity, maybe not. I don't know the details of how school board and city work together on something like this, if at all. But I wanted to throw that out there as a possible maybe discussion topic or something that somebody follows up on.
I think Dr. Joe said, like, this is really great, because this has not been my experience up to this point. There's really positive relationship with you and the city council. So Michelle's point is a big one, but.
Michelle reminded me of 2 things. Actually, if I could say those, one is we are doing something very specific. I've already written in this week's board update. I forgot to mention it tonight. The police contacted me today to ask if I gave them permission to trespass any loiterers who they caught there, so that there could be sanctions if they were to return. And I gave them that authority to trespass anybody who's on our school property doing various things. So that will start immediately. The second thing is I have a Lisa McDonald is giving me and Jesse Baker and new police chief Pro, we're gonna take like a 2-hour walk around the entire city center and school tomorrow to not just talk about the needles and things, but also dangerous crosswalks for kids and all of those sorts of
Safe
things.
routes to school is
Yeah.
important, yeah.
Yep, so, but we have that planned tomorrow, 3:30, that'll be taking a long jaunt around town to figure out what else can we do to keep our kids safe. We never, we're making these steps with the needles because a kid got poked.
Yeah.
We do not want to wait for a student to get hit by a car for us to take steps,
Yes.
so we're gonna be proactive with that too.
I know this is out of our jurisdiction, but there already are federal laws about drug sales within 1,000 feet of schools. So,
I was wondering about that, like drug-free school zones. I feel like I've seen those signs before, and so I didn't know.
There's
That's
federal
there.
laws.
unless the laws change,
Yeah,
drug sales within 1,000 feet.
sales, but
But
from what I understand.
here's the
use is
thing,
not.
Laura, from experience, nobody gathers in one spot, bringing all their own stuff
Right.
and doing it there. There are sales going on.
Yeah, right, okay. Interesting. So,
But could it be extended, could be extended to usage and, go.
Yeah, but that's what,
Yeah,
he's asking.
yeah.
he gave
Yeah,
So that would be a city
Yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
right. Just thinking what we're-
Or maybe,
No.
the state
Yeah.
law goes into effect about drug use, sales, whatever, within a certain distance of school.
well, I think a good crisis is a bad thing to waste, right? We have momentum now
Right.
because of a horrible thing that happened. I
Yeah.
think we need to continue pressure on legislators who can help us get things done, in addition to whatever we can do as a school.
So circling back for the agenda planning, is there anything specific that we should add to the agenda to further explore this? Cause that's how,
Well, it sounds like you're on your walking tour tomorrow.
Yeah.
so maybe you can just give an update
Yeah,
on that
I can give an update.
as part of the superintendent,
Yeah.
okay?
And I'll keep you posted if I need you to make some phone calls.
Perfect. All right, if anything else, agenda planning topics? All right, next item is our consent agenda, which includes approval of prior meeting minutes from September 3rd, 9th, 10th, and 17th, 2025. Also the approval of 12 accounts payable vouchers and the approval of the hiring report for Becky Fontana, Danielle Gomes, and Lewan Markel. Are there any items a board member would like to remove from the consent agenda for separate discussion or action? All right, hearing none,
No.
I will enter a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I approve to accept the consent agenda as presented.
All right, second? Second. Austin? Okay, so. Laura accepted, seconded by Austin, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You did a great job. Ed.
Oh, yeah, I
That's
forgot
why I
that
like-
part. Is there any
You did a great
discussion?
job.
Is there any discussion?
No.
Discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
Okay, the motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Welcome to the South Middlesex School District. To our new hires, Miss Montana, Miss Phillips, Miss. Okay, now also there is an action item that I understand requires separate approval, and that's payments to the Howard Center in the amounts of $143,914.95 and $57,809.11, as these exceed the superintendent's signing authority for tuition or contract services. So we're gonna take that item separately. So I will now entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable order checks to the Howard Center in the amounts of $143,914.95 and $57,809.11.
I move to accept the Howard Center checks.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so that was approved by Laura and seconded by Emily. Any discussion? Yep. All right, all those in favor?
I.
Any opposition? Oh, sorry, Laura, Michelle, that was I.
Yeah.
Okay, the motion carries, consent agenda is approved. All right, any further discussion? Okay, there being no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Laura,
Did you want to do it?
and who was next? Who seconded?
I'll second.
Dan, second.
Dan?
All right, then.
All right, all those in favor, oh, any discussion? All those in favor?
I.
Any opposition? Right, the motion carries. The meeting is adjourned at 7:35. Thank you to everyone. And our next regularly scheduled meeting will be on Wednesday, October 15th at 6 p.m. here in the district office. Meeting materials and agendas will be available on the district website.
Right.